So here we are again, the Flâneurs podcast, and it's great to have a couple of guests this time round. We don't usually have two. Every now and again we have one guest, and now we've got one of my favourite couples in the agility world, in the open management world, Dr. Cherry Vu and Rob England. People who've been around the agility and the DevOps and the business agility and the open management scene for a long time. But I won't steal your thunder. We kicked off so that you could introduce yourselves to us and to our listener and watcher. So yeah, please do. Please tell us all about yourself.
And welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Cherry, do you want to go?
You could
Oh,
go
the
first.
lady first.
Ladies
Of course.
first. Thank you.
So Rob and I is a team. We are a team. We work in a new way of working and managing. We have organization from the very small to the huge organization, so to transform themselves from the traditional way of working and managing to open way of working and managing. And yeah, so far we have quite a big number of organization, and we are very successful with the way they, the performance and the cultures. And so far, our client love us. So I'm here just a beauty, and Rob is a brain. So let him talk about himself.
I love the humility.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, speaking of beauty and brains, so Cherry is Dr. Cherry Vu and has a PhD from here in Wellington, New Zealand, in public policy of all things. But she's also studied in Germany for her master's, and as you may guess, she's from Vietnam. So, and has another handful of degrees from Vietnam as well.
Yes.
And a strong background in business. So I'm an IT guy, like Matt. I'm an IT service management person from way back, and worked in IT process and IT management, and been a consultant for nearly 20 years now. And I came to Agile roundabout through Ops and DevOps, and got in early when Gene Kim kicked off the enterprise DevOps conferences, went to the very first one of those and got into the DevOps movement, and kind of became the DevOps guy around Wellington when people finally wanted to talk about it, and worked at the CIO level there. And was just starting to get into business agility. And so I've never worked in development and Agile from the development side of the house. I've watched it and been immersed, but never actually done it. And I was following this Agile thread into business agility and the stuff that was in Forbes, and Steve Denning was talking about how Agile was escaping the IT world and bursting out into business. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. And I was just following that thread when I met Cherry here in Wellington, and she was just finishing her degree and about to go into government as a policy analyst. And I was like, no, don't do that. Come and work with me. So we started Teal Unicorn as a consultancy with her business acumen. So Cherry has degrees in accountancy and law and things like that, and has run a number of businesses in Vietnam, and seems to know everybody important in Vietnam somehow. And so she has connections and prestige to be able to get CE level access. So I'm working at CIO level, but Cherry can get in the door in Vietnam at CE level. So we did some work here in New Zealand and around the world, but really when we got to Vietnam, that was the sweet spot, because it's behind the language barrier. and
Yeah.
very few Vietnamese speak English. So when a very persuasive, very influential woman like Cherry turns up speaking native Vietnamese and channeling these modern Western ideas of work, it's a blue ocean. And I mean, and so one of the reasons for our success is we filter our clients. Well, no, they self-filter. They come to us.
Yeah.
And so we're engaging with CEs who really want to make a difference. That's the point. We're engaging with CEs who are actually actively interested in this stuff. And that does make it a lot easier. So if you haven't guessed, we're a couple. She's in that room and I'm in this room. And we also do stuff around family. So we write books and run seminars around Western ideas of child raising and family relationships and couples, because those are considered pretty radical ideas in Vietnam as well.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's still socially acceptable to beat your wife, you know. So
Right.
so we get noticed in the street, you know, mostly because of me, right? So the big Western guy with the ponytail, and so people go, oh, that's Cherry Vu. And
yeah, that's Choi Vu's husband.
yeah. And so we
It's
get
Rob
recognized
here,
as,
must be Cherry next.
yeah, people do. They come up and go, is Cherry here? Because they've seen me.
Yeah.
So but that means we're actually recognized more, I think, in the 50-50, but we're often recognized in the street for our family stuff as much as Cherry has a huge following on Facebook for business and for raising teenagers. So it could be either one that we get recognized for in Vietnam.
So that's really interesting, isn't it? That's like we talk a lot about, people talk a lot about work-life balance. Like they are things you have to pit against one another, or you have to choose between them. But it's really interesting for me that so your background, Cherry, the fact that political or social policy building, and then Rob's distracted you away from that into the world of work, and really you're forming policies around how people structure work and behave within work. But then also you've got this thing that is based around family, which is the life bit, isn't it? So there is that work-life balance in the policies that you teach people, help people build, I suppose. Yeah. So what I suppose there's got to be a question in there somewhere, but when Rob took your focus away from what was probably going to be a civil service or a public service life, and brought your focus towards the world of business, maybe, did you feel like you were losing something, or did it feel like an exciting place to go to?
I actually, to be honest, I have no idea. I have no idea. Actually, I was a consultant before, so
Yeah.
I have quite a bit of organized government organization, and also doing. I mean, it's not something like absolutely new for me at all, because when I learn about agile or complexity and all the new ideas that we are talking about nowadays, then I go back to when I start doing my business.
Yeah.
All the crazy idea that that people write a book about books and books about it. It's actually what I did before. So I just don't know the theory, and I don't have that kind of all the concept is like logically, but I run 3 business, all self-organized, no managers, including me. I'm not a manager at all. I wasn't manage anyone. Everyone's empowered to do the job, and we all work as a team, and as not only team but like family member. So we don't have any manager in our companies. When I have 250 people, So
Wow.
so it's the theory, the concept is nothing new to me. So that's why I feel it's so easy to help others to do things the same,
Yeah.
because it's not something that I practically have that. But later on, I learned the ideas, I learned the theories, and I
Yeah.
have more kind of knowledge, and it makes sense to me. It all
Nice.
makes sense to me later on. So coming from, I never actually be a government officer before, even though I
Yeah.
work for the Vietnamese government for some times. But I kind of always be businesswoman.
Mm.
Yeah,
Is
so
that, is
it's
that where the
not.
openness comes from then? You say like having businesses with sort of, and so it sounds like it was like a we talk we you know we learn about organizations like Zappos and Holacracies and is that where your grounding in openness comes from? Like the fact that you've lived through running a business with that many people, 250, that's a lot of people, a lot of souls to coordinate, isn't it? And
Yeah,
so you must have really been just naturally um, aligned to that open transparency. Let's
yeah.
all coordinate. Let's all collaborate, cooperate, communicate. That must have been a fantastic grounding. And
Thank you.
is this where the books come from?
Yeah, thank you. But because my background is my family is a business, so my parents run a family business. So our company is one of the first companies that established in Vietnam when we have open door policy.
Yeah.
But the companies, because nobody ever have a chance to learn or no school to teach you how to manage anything at that time. So my parents just manage people the way they understand. And because of that, there's no structure at all in that family business. No
I,
structure, and there's no policy been written at all.
I think
And
that's a really interesting point. And
yeah,
I was thinking of this when Dan was talking before we started recording, and it goes back to something Gene Kim said a while back. But if you just sort of start from first principles, if you have no idea how to run a business and you
yeah,
just start, then these agile ideas are kind of like the naturally emergent.
Yeah.
If you're nice people and you're in a collective sort of culture, you land on agile, isn't that right, Cherry? It's kind of what just
yes,
naturally emerges. And all
yes, is
this
it? Yeah,
Western management theory is some slightly abnormal stuff that's been layered over the top to force
Mm.
people to work. And it's not natural. It's not what emerges from a group of people.
Mm.
yeah, and also talking about agile, when you don't have so much resource and people, and so you can like everyone have their own roles, just
Mm.
act in that area, right? But because you don't have people, you don't have resource, so
Yeah.
everyone have to do everything.
Yeah.
It's agile. They
Yeah.
have skill to do everything. If they don't have skill to do anything, they got trained to do it. Like for
Mm.
example, my truck driver, he's be able to be a salesman. He's be able to be a cash, how to call it. He can put things together. We don't need some workers to go with him to
Mm.
put furniture together. So we make furniture, very high quality Vietnamese wooden furniture. So it's very hard to put it together, but he have to learn everything, and he play about 4 or 5 roles all the
Mm.
time.
Yeah.
So
I get,
we train them to do that, to be able to do that. So we don't need 5 people to do 5 roles.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah. I mean, when you were sharing your experiences as far as like, the emergence, of just natural behavior of just self-organizing and figuring things out.
Mm.
Um, you know, if I relate to, I'm going to relate to, you know, the most recent experience, which is, you know, in another country, not, you know, not from the West. So in Senegal, where, you know, where I'm from, when I just recently have been going back and forth a lot more often. Um, I always thought that, you know, especially when I started off with the whole agile thing, I always, you know, which is about humans and connection and just, you know, figuring things out and letting it be about the people. Always thought, you know, obviously, you know, Africa kind of like, uh, you know, from a economic world perspective, it was kind of lagging behind. It's starting to catch up now. But I always thought the opportunity for them in terms of just, you know, when you contrast with the West, which has really been sort of went through the Industrial Revolution, and then tech came in, and now that overlay of management and processes just kind of brought everything to a screeching halt and kind of really sucked innovation out of, you know, especially the big companies, which is how a lot of people leave big companies and go and start a new company, right? Start to go into startup or the youth, and then just figure it out. And that's how we've got Google, Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, et cetera. And I always thought the opportunity for African continent was to you know, that human perspective, that need to, before you close a deal, to go grab, sit with somebody, earn their trust, look them in the eye. And that's still at the very ethos of how, you know, business and things are done. I relay that a lot in Asia as well from some of my Asian friends. And I always saw it unfortunate that in a lot of the government spaces and big companies, which are often, you know, mergers, you know, there's, you know, like Total will come in and acquire a local company and they'll partner up to sort of extract some, you know, coal and mining, whatever. I always thought that influence that was sort of that was sort of that was sort of adopted through, you know, colonization, whatever the case may be, was going to be a real challenge because it's been codified. You know, that sort of Western thinking of management is something that's been codified into, you know, sort of some of the higher echelons of places where valuable economic, you know, incentives and decisions and policies are drawn up. And so interesting for me to hear from you, Doctor, who's like, how did you balance, you know, the cultural, you know, magnet of, hey, let's just do it this way because this is the way we're going to get, you know, cachet. This is the way we're going to get recognized and have credibility by doing it like they do it in the West, as opposed to, you know, when the West is actually trying to get away from that, as opposed to, you know, figuring things out in a much more emergent, organic way. So how did you, that's really interesting, you know, for me to hear your perspective.
When I run the business, I don't think that much. I don't think that much. First of all, I don't know the Western culture ways of managing.
Yeah.
Secondly, normally you just do all the best with your knowledge, right? And what is, I think the most important thing that I learned along the way is that we always reflect what we did well, what needs to be improved, and so who we do what.
We do see, though, with now working with people like EVN or, you know, some of the bigger, the bank, like with Samsung, with the Koreans coming into Vietnam, and they've got this massively Western Korean Uber management kind of approach to things. Or those people that work with the supermarket, like they're coming with, Korea is very Western and very rigid, and the Koreans are trying to do business in Vietnam, and Cherry, you're seeing that kind of collision in our clients with what we're trying to do. It's great when you've got total local control, but as soon as these big what are they called, chaebols come in, they've got this totally, you see that collision in that context.
Yes, and the lot of CEO that I'm coaching at the moment, even the small and medium company is not a huge one, but they try to, because they learned a lot about procedure, and very, very tight structure and KPIs and all sorts of things. Then I often try to explain to them, look, like I give you one example. I have a clients who work for like student. They work. They have a farm. They have a farm. They supply vegetable and fruit for supermarket. So it's the huge amounts of product, and they decide that if they start, they keep selling it to the supermarket. They have no brand at all. They had no brand at all. So they start to build one convenience store, but they apply, they invite a procedure guy who worked for a big bank in Vietnam and introduce a lot of structure and policy and all that. So every day it took them 3 hours to have a meeting and go through all the procedure and that. So imagine that you have one small convenience store with 6 people and selling the thing that you produce, but you get lost. You lost huge amounts of money every month because of the, it's no productivity and no efficiency and anything. So when she came to me, I said, look, so I said, what do you want? She said, I want to build kind of a trend of convenience store in the future. So now I start from one. I have to make it make it applicable to every other one. So it's like a system.
Right.
So I said, okay, but you did the way you do and it doesn't work. Do you want to stop? She said, no, yeah, I think about it like a big picture. And I go, I accept that I will lost for 1 year, 2 years, but in the future, I have a system. I said, okay, think about this way. If a household wife who open a convenience store in their house, how many people and procedure that they want? I said, nothing at all. No policy at all, right? If there's too many customers, she will ask her husband and her son helping her. No procedure, no rules, no anything at all, right? People just do whatever. But it's the only thing that she have to do is every day she open the book, put what she bought and how much she sell and how much benefits she got every day. Full stop. What is the difference between your store and her store? Nothing at all. And if you want to build a system, why don't you think about this? Don't worry about doing marketing, huge marketing, spend a lot of money for marketing and invite experts. The best is to serve your current client around that area. And when you get profit, when you get enough profit, you open another, and then that's how you make a system.
And those other ones serve their locality as well, don't they?
Exactly. So your clients, your customer is the best one to do marketing for you. And you know what? After drop everything, just have a 15-minute every day standing up meeting. In 3 days, their revenues increase 4 times. I still have that graph.
Wow. That's a great story.
We've seen that twice, to your point, Sanjeri, where there was another one, was a supermarket where they got some Korean consultants in who built this huge system to run. Lotte, people from Lotte came in to set up the systems for a single supermarket, and so they're going into business thinking, to be a good business person, I have to follow these Western ideas and impose all these massive Western systems to look professional and to be scalable from day one. And so I think that's a big insight for places like Senegal, where to not fall into that trap of
Yeah.
trying to look professional and
Yeah.
but we've also seen the reverse where, or not the reverse, that I can't remember which one it was, Cherry, but at least one of our clients, because they started working in open management ways, they started looking really good to foreign investors who were like, hey, this is cool.
Right.
The way you guys are working is really cool. So you are obviously progressive. Who was that, Cherry? That
It's a EVNFC of
yes, it was EVN Finance.
finance company.
Big
Right.
retail financial in like loans company in Vietnam, one of the biggest. And attracting foreign investment. They made videos about us doing open management, Dr. Cherry
Yeah.
Vu, and the investors were like, oh,
Yeah.
funky.
Yeah.
And will those
So
foreign
what-
investors still let you retain? I mean, are there any strings attached, or they let you retain? They value the way that you're helping those businesses. There's no Western influence coming, like following that money and then putting
Oh
different
yeah.
Western
No, there
governance
still
around it.
is. There still
okay.
is. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there's always that danger that the McKinsey damage, there's always the MBAs, right? There's always that
Yeah.
that immune system that says, well, this is all very cool, but you're going to have to do it this way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Gonna have the
I tell
homogenous.
you a story. The same CEO who worked for a finance company, he's the CEO, the CEO of the finance company who we have to change and who get the idea. I coach him for about 4 months every week. And he changed a lot in the way he work, he managed, and also he then they're quite successful in transforming organization. And then he moved to the bank, quite a big bank, to be as a
An
CEO
acquired one.
in
Yeah.
in Vietnam.
Mm.
And he invite McKinsey in to help him.
Wow.
So I said to him, like, what the heck you are doing? You know what work, right? You know what work in, it doesn't. You know what he said? He said, I am the newcomer and I have to satisfy another. And they think he is the best. So I just invite them to do the acting. But in reality, I do it your way.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's
So they
interesting.
play the political, they
Yeah.
spend money, they spend money for political side to calm everyone down. Okay, I bring the best here, but
Yeah.
he does the way I did. He said, I do all the value stream and I cut all the crap and,
Yeah.
empower people to do work. And the more I work that way, the more I realize that it's the way. It's the way.
That's the jewel of the day there. I love that.
Yeah.
Dan, you wanted to jump in earlier. Philip.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I forget where I wanted to jump in, but in hearing some of this stuff, right? I think we've all experienced it and I've experienced it. At least one unicorn where these companies that grow so big, and they've been successful doing it their way, and then they start bringing in all the people from the big companies, and those people start saying, "What? You can't do it this way. You need all this process." And it slows them, it changes them, and they aren't the unicorns that they were. And even look at when Amazon took Whole Foods, right? I think I told the story on this podcast about how, so the way that Whole Foods used to be is they were extraordinarily local. So there was an overarching Whole Foods structure to it, right? They had a CEO, they had all this stuff, but all the stores, the employees were empowered to be very local in their policies about what people wore, what kinds of foods were there, et cetera, because then they could, mesh with the local culture. And so, you would find some places where the employees would have like tons of piercings and tattoos, and other places where they were very clean cut. And it was just sort of, they blended in with the culture of where they were, and everything was grand. And they also, the point here is that their bakeries all did different things, and you could get like really amazing, great things. And my mom loved the bakery at the Whole Foods close to her. And so Amazon comes in, and now they have standardized. They only do a certain number of cakes, and they have done the math, and they figured out what people buy. And this is the top selling one. So this is the cake that we do. And that cake that you used to like, it doesn't exist anymore because it didn't sell enough. And so the thing that my mom really loved about Whole Foods doesn't exist anymore because Amazon came in and said, we've crunched all the numbers and this one just doesn't meet the cut. And that gets onto a post I actually posted on LinkedIn today, actually just now before this. But I guess what I'm curious about is, I sometimes like to play the antagonist on this podcast. Is what I'm curious about is, like, I'm hearing,
we enjoy it.
Rob, you said, the word good, like if you're good people and what collective or whatever, like these things as good positive attributes, like the others are bad is what I'm inferring. And what I'm thinking is, couldn't culturally there be a place where maybe some of these things, you don't have to apply it all the way. It isn't an extreme or binary one or the other. And part of the reason I ask is because I have run into people in corporate world who I know they literally will say to me, I do not want to think. I want to come into the office. I want someone to tell me what to do. I want to do my 8 hours and I want to go home and I want to think about it no more. And this is what I want. So if you throw those people and you say, we're going to do this thing, and now you have to think, they're going to be like, nope, I don't want it.
It's a direct quote from a guy in a client of mine who just sat there and said, I don't like it. Will somebody please tell me what to do?
Yeah.
I really do like your Amazon story. They just did simple math. Yeah.
So I mean, my reaction to that is that there are a lot of people out there who are damaged, who have been trained into learned helplessness and are so disengaged from work that they just want to come and do their check in and check out. But I think that's a symptom of the harm that has been done to those individuals. And it's like the analogy I always use is when the animal liberationists break into a battery chicken farm and liberate all the chickens and set them free from their little cages and put them out in the field, they don't run around dancing and singing. They all sit there terrified, blinking in the bright light, right? They don't like it. They don't like being let out because they've spent their whole life in this little cage. And so I always feel that way about people who don't want to work better in the ways we're talking about, is that it's because they're just out of their comfort zone. They're way, way out of their comfort zone. But I do believe that people who are, what's it called? Lying flat. I think it's the Japanese, isn't it? Call it lying flat. They're just, they're just completely disengaged from the work. I do think that those people blossom over time when you give them an opportunity to be more engaged in the work. I have this faith in humanity that I do think that, I don't have data to prove it, but I do like to think that they'd be more enthused about coming to work and not necessarily work any longer. I mean, we're great with, check out and go home and think about something else, but I just think they would be more engaged with work over time in a more positive environment.
I recently had,
isn't it?
Yeah, I recently had somebody who actually, with the whole trying to do things one way, then at some point, I get a position and then I bring into the big firms, to have, to what he said was he was using that to de-risk. It was a very similar situation. And what he said is basically, I know that if I go and bring this other consulting company, which is a younger company and was really fresh and had great ideas, great people, great talent, if I bring them in to help me, anything that goes wrong, like I'm going to be on a short leash and I may even be let out the door. Right. And so if I bring in the McKinsey, I know that I'm de-risking to a mask. I can never be blamed because I took I took the less risky proposition. So it's got to be I can't be blamed for it. So there's a lot of fear you know, and we had an episode on fear and discomfort. That's really deeply rooted, like you say, you know, I love the analogy with the chickens. When you let them out and they sit there in fear. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of trauma that's been, you know, that's happening. There you go. Okay. There's a lot of trauma that's happened, I think, over decades, over I'd say even centuries. And so that gets passed on like generational trauma, right?
Yeah.
From like if you step out of line, you're gonna lose that job, you're gonna lose that check, right? And sometimes even your close, your loved ones tell you that, like, hey, don't be too much of a maverick. Just sit tight. Things will work out. You get to come home to your family, and you're right. And so, but I think this new generation who's really challenging the status quo, and we see it, you know, in politics, we see it in just all facets of life, even in sports. There's this discussion of, you know, do we overthink things and just use data as the end all be all, or do we actually allow humans to think and feel things and make decisions based on what they're seeing, thinking, and what makes sense to them, right? And what they're willing to experiment. So yeah, it's
The thing about data though as well is, isn't it? It's all data's from the past.
yeah.
So you're regurgitating things that, you know, that you might think, well, really what you're saying is this worked. But it might not be fit for the future, isn't it? Like what we're actually trying to do in the future is invent something, not copy something, because our future problems are emergent, aren't they? They'll surprise us.
Mm.
Yeah, what got you here won't get you there is one of our favorite sayings from that book.
I think I always think that it's the bad system that make people behave badly. So the other day I talked to the one CEO that she spent about an hour talking about how horrible her people are, all of them, not a single one.
Oh wow.
The manager, the people, they are horrible, and especially the Vietnamese culture, the Vietnamese people, they're bad. So I said, look, I am Vietnamese. So I said, Vietnamese, I am Vietnamese, but the way I drive a car is so different to in New Zealand is so different to the way I drive a car in Hanoi.
Because
in
of the
New
context.
Zealand, yes, in New Zealand, when even in the midnight, nobody's there, but I will stop in the red light, right, at the red light.
Yeah.
But in Vietnam, even the red light there, if I don't go, people will shout at me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I love that
do
analogy.
things.
It's such a good analogy for taking an individual into a different system and the difference in behavior in that different
And there are
system.
different expectations, and it governs itself in a different way. And so safety is different, isn't it, as well? Like
everything.
So the red light in Hanoi is guidance. If
Yes,
it's indicative.
Pay attention. If it's not safe, don't go for. But if it is safe, go crack on.
Yeah.
Well,
But I think that was, I mean, that was my point with my question, right? Is that I think it is about context, and there might be contexts where people, the way they've been raised, the way that they come across culturally is those people, and Rob, you may think they're broken, but the way that they or that they've been you know, treated poorly. And so they've been taught this learned helplessness, but the way they cope in the world, whether or not it's good or bad, is that they like to be told what to do, and they want to just show up and be told what to do. And there's some percentage of the population that likes this. And so if we don't build a system that accounts for them, it seems like we're not doing right by them, that they also need a place where they can fit.
I think that word place is important, right? Finding the place within the organization. I do agree. So, and not only the place within the organization, but also the right organization. So those people might not be the right people to be working in a highly, I always talk about the spectrum between transactional work and knowledge work, right? And those people should be doing transactional work. And if there are transactional jobs within the business, then great, give them the transactional jobs. But if it's a high knowledge work environment, then they might actually be in the wrong organization. There might not be a place for them. But if there is a place, let people find their place. We're big on fluidity of work and letting people write their own job description, right? Letting people find find their place within the organization where they maximize their contribution, and also honoring everybody's contribution. So I remember working in an organization where there was this guy, and I'm not sure if he was a bit simple or not, actually. But he was always happy, and he always ran around and helped people, and he was always there in every conversation, and he was just the nicest guy. And I remember saying to someone, "What does he actually do around here?" And they said, "Not much. As far as I can tell, I don't think he actually does much of anything." But we all love him.
We love the guy.
Yeah.
Right. So he had a function in that organization, and a McKinsey manager would have fired him in an instant. But he had an essential human function within that organization that everybody recognized.
And in that sense, I mean, like Dan's point about accommodating people who have said that they just want to turn up. But what we're talking about, like, they're a product of the context, and we're going to change the context. So I think don't you sort of have to hold fast on the well, we're going to change the context because, you know, that's why people like yourselves are brought in, because someone somewhere who has influence says, I want to change the context. I want us to be more successful in a different way. And you just hold fast with that, but you support that person and you wait to see if the change in the context changes their response to the context, don't you? And like you say, I suppose if that person then says, "Oh, right, now more is being demanded of me, and actually I am that person who doesn't want to do anything here," then, like you say, they'll find somewhere where they're able to do whatever it is they're willing to give. You still want that person to be happy, but I think I like you, Rob, and I think you, Cherry, that we believe that changing that context allows that person to bring to work whatever it is they get outside of work that fulfills them. Because I think on a level, actually, we think to be human is to love art, is to love creativity, is to want to dance, is to however you want to describe it, is, I think there's something that person is not getting in work that they've just insulated themselves against. And their coping mechanism is, I'm just going to survive this day, doing as little as possible because I'm not engaged. I don't think people like that really exist throughout their whole 24 hours of a day. And so let's change the context whereby, well, I can be creative, I can dance at work, I can have fun. And that'll unleash a whole load of, that's why the people invite you in to change that context, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just add, just let me say, Matt, I love what you're saying. I'm on board with that, and I agree.
Yeah.
So when I call myself antagonistic, I'm kind of playing the line of what I'm here, what I hear. So I agree with all these things that you guys are talking about. I just hear a lot of folks in the market, and I have conversations. There are people who say, actually, there was someone at Agile 2023 from big bank. I won't name it, but I think I know which one it was. I wasn't there. And the guy is giving his presentation. He's like, who of you ever came and asked us if, we wanted these values, or if we valued these values that are in the Agile Manifesto? Like, you're out here imposing these things on us, but who of you ever came to us and asked us if we want it? So it's a similar type thing here of like, who did we ask that people want the tealness? Did we ask if they want this, or are we just saying, sort of like SAFE does and says, go apply it everywhere? We've figured out the way that it should be and go apply it everywhere. Like, what is the difference in your mind, right? And I'm sorry if that, I just want to say that I just want to put out that I'm not espousing my views and saying I disagree. I'm trying to get the conversation about, like, I hear this stuff. How do we think about that stuff?
We often invite people. We often have a big days workshop
planning. Yeah.
Workshop we invite everyone in every level of the organization to come and to together with us to paint a picture of the company, what the future we want to be, what does good look like, what we value, and how do we want to be in the position in the market, you know, and what happened, why we are not there, why we're not there, what are the things that we need to change, we need to improve, and what it's including human system and service or product, everything. So we put all together, and we invite people to talk. And normally people don't talk if you ask them one by or 101, but everyone together, and we often group them in a group. So
Mhm.
each person in each group present their view, not a person's view. So people feel safe to express their view because nobody knows who say what all together, because
Mm.
they are in a cave, like they are the victim of the system. They dare not to speak up. But when we all together and we work together, and they know that it's safe to talk here, because when we put it in the we put it on the wall, nobody knows who's talking about what. And I think that's very powerful, and everyone know others problem, everyone know that what go well and what go wrong and what we want. And I recognize that everyone, from the leader to manager to people, they all want the same thing.
Mhm.
They all want the same
Yep.
thing. They want to have a good culture. They want to people support each other. They want we produce good values, and they all want the same thing. But why, when it happen, when it every single days, it doesn't happen that way. Like they like enemy to each other,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because nobody ever talk about it.
Yeah.
It's
Nobody
like,
ever invites them together and
yeah,
be open together,
yeah, and
right?
create the situation where they can talk to one another and say we what we've got is not what we want. It's like, have you heard of the Abilene paradox? Which is this thing. It's like a cognitive bias thing, but it's like, the story is there's a group of people in a house. It's a public holiday or something, and then they all end up by this thing about like going to it's somewhere in America, and they all get in it, and it's 3 hours journey from where they are. Shall we go to Abilene? On this 3 hour journey in the car, and it's a hot day, and then they all end up in the car traveling to this place called Abilene. And then they're
Texas.
all talking to each other when they're in there, going like, "What are we going to do when we get there?" And like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't. Well, I don't really want to go." And like an hour and a half into the journey, and then they all discover nobody wanted to go to Abilene.
Mm.
And that's a real thing. Like, we're all in these organizations doing this stuff, just robotically every day, doing this thing, and none of us want to do it in that way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Until people like yourselves come in and create a situation where it's like, however, you have to create it with whatever groups to say, look, just talk amongst yourselves and tell us what you want to do. And then they voice it, and what they want to do is nothing like what they've ended up doing, even though, and they don't realize they have the power to make a different decision, do they? It's
Yeah.
interesting.
To Dan's point, though, there is an impositional element as well, because once they agree that this is what they want, Cherry is a very strong person, and there is that there is that leap of faith from what we call the apex exec, to say, I believe in what Cherry is talking about. I think open management is the way forward for us to achieve the things people want, and we are going this way. And Cherry is very strong in convincing them and taking them that way. So they all agree on what they want, but how to do that, there's a strong impositional element in saying, well, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it this way. And Cherry always says, you don't have to believe me, you just have to try it. So the key element is not to do it big bang, impositional, not to do McKinsey reorganization, but just do it in an experimental and incremental way where you generate early proof points to people to say, look, it is the way to go. See, it does work.
Yeah.
And work your way down the bell curve from the pioneers and the early adopters who are willing to give it an early go. And quite often with Cherry, it seems to be HR are the ones willing to experiment early, for example, and have a few teams work this way and go, look, and so generating the proof points or one division within the bank, having this division, we haven't talked about numbers, right? But, have this division meet their annual quotas within a month and a half, and suddenly the other divisions are like, wait, what? Money, real cash pouring out.
Yeah.
So it's that incremental approach to try and convince people that this is not just some theorist, there's not something some guy in California wrote. It's
but even when I introduced the idea, I didn't impose to them because I always go from their pain. Here's a pain point, and if we keep doing it's all, you all feel painful now at the moment. But if you keep doing the way we do, nothing changes at all. We have a more pain, right?
Yeah.
So it's always come from there to I'm here to help, or this idea can help you to release the pain, not just like do it, it will be better, because they don't feel like they want to do it if it's not helping them. No matter the ideas, how good it is, they don't listen. If they don't see themselves that this will help them, it's
Do you find
all the way from their pain.
Do you find it like, so Rob's like they describe, and you've disagreed there, Cherry, about it, you, I mean, obviously you give strong, clear guidance, and Rob's described it as an imposition, and I don't quite believe him. And then you've sort of said, well, it's not quite like that. But I was interacting with someone today, and they made me think about like what we do as change makers and as theorists, and like encouraging people to take that leap of faith into practice of the theory we've put in front of them. It can seem coercive, it can seem manipulative. We're basically marketing ideas to them. Maybe like Coca-Cola might make us drink their drinks, that sort of thing. So it's quite compelling what we do. And this person was saying about, like, actually most of the stories that they see out there are about us influencing others. And it did make me think that, because I was chatting to someone a week or so ago, and I described what I enjoy about what I do as being that concept of the first follower. And there's that video of the dancing person on the hill and stuff, and the first follower being really, really important. And it feels to me like what you're describing there is like you are a peak first follower. Like, so we can, when people try something new, what I identify is I'm the person right next to them, encouraging them, getting them over the hump of, oh, this is embarrassing, oh, this feels uncomfortable, and I'm there sort of cheerleading them on. But I'm also, for the people who might follow them, people who might follow that person need to know how to behave as a follower.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things in what we do as well is that, like, what we're taking them from is they have this strange view on certainty. Everything we do must be very certain and must be, and our first follower role is showing them how to follow a leader who might fail or who has flaws and be okay with it. And I think is that sort of what you do, Rob? Do you think that's what Cherry does really well, is role model good behavior in complex and adaptive systems where the person who is brave enough to take the lead might be fallible, and that's okay, because I think that's a nice thing as well, and that's a creative thing, I think, as well. Do you identify with that? Like, I'm thinking out loud now.
That's an open-ended question, Matt.
Is there a question in there somewhere? I don't know.
Yes, I think, it normally we always I always talk to the CEO when they are not really comfortable with what happened. I said, look, we will take people who are willing to, like what Matt say, who are willing to, and then we go together, and I don't care how much they learn and how much they experience, and I don't care about what the knowledge they have. The only thing that I care is whether they are willing to learn, or willing to fail, to be failed. It's a two willing to learn and willing to be failed, and we it this experience, and the way we talk to them is not everything is experience. We just learn how to do the new way, and we fail for sure. We can't successful right away. We will be failed, but we fail very small and safe to fail.
Yeah.
And so everyone be encouraged to try. And so also I mean, if a group of, normally I never pick one. I pick like 3. Okay, we go together and we work
Yeah.
together, different team, and then we compare notes, and then we learn from each other. So people don't feel like, oh, it's so embarrassing.
It's all on their shoulders.
Yeah. So I think it might be a good way. I don't know.
Which is, again, it's that
Totally.
like sort of community aspect to it, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
like we said sort of at the top of the conversation about like the natural emergence, like how villages self-govern, how groups of people who live amongst one another naturally, and I think humans do naturally, we try and find a community, we try and find people we identify with and who we like, and we try and support them so they'll support us. And sometimes I think when we step into a professional environment, we think, oh, we have to shed all that. We have to have rules and so on. We have to stop at red lights. Whereas actually, like, we're all like, oh, yeah, no, carry on.
That's that 20th century imposition. I know with time, but can I get a bit profound for a moment?
Please.
Because there was a seminal idea for me way back that just triggered everything, was that idea of the transcendentals of truth, beauty, and goodness. And when I heard truth, beauty, and goodness, my brain just went, bam, that's it. You know, the 20th century management approach is all about truth. It's all about facts, and it's all about hard business. It's just business. Keep the emotions out of this. You know, it's just business, man. And greed is good. It's all about the dollars. It's the numbers that matter. And completely shedding the beauty and the goodness. Is it beautiful? Is it a nice thing? And is it good? Is it ethical? Is it honest? Is it with integrity? And bringing those 3 elements back together, for me, was like a big aha for what this stuff is about. And I think that speaks to everything we've been talking about here, is when you bring those 3 threads back into the workplace and you say, you know, we're going to work with integrity, we're going to work with honesty, we're going to be transparent about things. So the transparency is the truthiness, but it's going to be human, and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be something that lifts our spirits and inspires us and says, this is beautiful work that we're doing.
I think another reality is that there is a business environment that we've created. It reminds me of Bob Marley's song Rat Race, right? And so we're right in the middle of that. It's like everybody's racing, but racing to God knows what. You know, it's funny, I work in a luxury space, and sometimes there was a running joke where if you hit a quarter, 2 quarters in a row, and you weren't hitting the same margin of profit, right? That was seen as a colossal failure because you were too busy looking at what the others were doing, and that, you know, you weren't making the same headway. And, you know, we had a running joke with management sometimes. We say, hey guys, we sell handbags, right? We sell handbags and shoes. Like we're not saving lives out here. Like let's bring it down a notch. And so it just goes back to that rat race thing where it's like there's a lot of deception out there as well. Deception because of fear of not meeting people's self-imposed self-interests. And so you create these really toxic environments where, yeah, it's about just truth, numbers, but those numbers are not, they're not mission led. You guys talked to me about mission when I was recruited here. Nothing in what I'm doing is mission led. We've got this beautiful website which talks about, green tech and, eco circular economy and responsibility and all these things. None of those things are reflected in what I do on a day-to-day basis. So as I find like a lot of times in these transformative, really stress pressure environments, the toughest thing is to be able to, obviously you can't do it on your own, is to find a Rob, a Dr. Cherry, a Matt and a Dan to help you hold up the mirror to say, hey guys, this, there's a huge gap between perception and reality here, right? So like let's deal with that, right? And that could be done through, the whole big room planning, but I think there needs to be that moment of like, okay, we can't keep telling the same lies, right? because everyone sees it, right?
Yeah, it has to come from the top, is what our current book we're working on, right? We've realized that, and so one of the things that warms my heart in the work we do, and I'll let Cherry reflect on this, is that as you've heard, she coaches these CEs personally on their journey. And a whole bunch of Apex execs have become lifetime personal friends of ours. And a number of them have reflected back to Cherry, you've changed me personally as an individual, not just changed the way I work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite rewarding. It's just lovely. For me, I feel like I said to them like it's more important for me than how much money you earn. Really, it's very important because if you grow, if you be better, if you feel happier, then it's nothing else can be more important than that, right?
Yeah.
And I know that when they change themselves to be better, especially men, very strong, leader who always have to be like, I'm the best, I am the strongest, and I am the best.
Ego.
Now they know that they have to show their weakness. I don't know this. Can you help me to do this? I don't know. Can you help me? It's very strong message for the their ego. And some people, like few CEO of very big organizations, said to me like, I'm not busy anymore. And now I choose what I do, and I'm not busy in a micro management anymore. And I think like I'm become a real leader because when I talk, people cry. One leader, one CEO said to me, Jerry, when I talk to accountant people, normally she never talk to anyone. She just talk about work. He never talk about life. I said, do you know your chief accountant have family? He said, I have no idea. He said, okay, now every day you talk to 3 people for me, not about work, just talk about how they feel and what they like or anything at all, but not work, not about work. So he practiced it. And one day he came back say, Cherry, when I talk to my accountants, they are all women. And they are all very busy and all very stressful and unhappy. Then I said to them, like, I know that you still have a family to care. You should care about your family and spend your time with the family, do your best. And then when anytime you got left, come to work and do your best. I don't need you to sit here for 8 hours. And just if you are here for 8 hours and you didn't think about work, then it's worse. So I want, no matter how much time you have, to come here to work and work with a full mind.
Mm.
That's it. And people just cry because of that. Nobody ever told them that they can look after their family first.
Mm.
Everyone talk about work, right?
That's
but
powerful.
you've allowed them to, like you say, go and have 3 conversations. The starting point is go and have 3 conversations, isn't it? It's learn how to be that other person, I suppose. And
Yes.
don't put pressure on yourself to do it. I think it reminds me as well of like the person that Dan was speaking of before, who you know, like who I feel has insulated themselves against work. And I'm sure you'll explore this in The Open Executive, the next book that you're writing, is that executives do that as well, don't they? I mean, I was watching something recently with this chap Rutger Bergman. I don't know if you know him, but he was one of the chaps who was on a panel at Davos, you know, the economic forum in Switzerland, where and he basically lambasted everyone who got
tore
off
them
a
apart.
private jet, didn't he? And he said, just pay your taxes. Just pay your taxes. And then he was never invited back, I don't think. But I saw a conversation with him recently, and he described leaders, and he said leaders have generally become blind and disconnected. And he basically sort of said, like, power corrupts. And I get that. And that's sort of, it's a bit glib saying that, isn't it? But I think what he also said was power anesthetizes you. If you have to look after all of those things, you have to simplify, and you have to turn people into numbers, or you can't live with yourself, and you would just freeze. And I think it's a natural thing, like the person coming into work who's working at the coalface level, numbs themselves to the work, the mindless work that they're doing. People at the top numb themselves to the impact they're having on people's lives. And I think that simple exercise that you've put in front of someone, Cherry, about just go and be human for a bit, it breaks it down, doesn't it? And it takes away these things that, like, they might have grown into, which they're known for being impulsive, self-centered, reckless, arrogant,
psychopathic.
Yeah, we talk about them like that, don't we? But go and have a human conversation with someone, you become human again.
Yeah.
And you change your behaviors. We naturally do that, I think. Yeah. And it's such a
wonderful
story to hear.
I think we got to end it somewhere on that, Matt. I mean, unless we do our closeout, because I think
that was a beautiful closeout.
Cherry's humanity exercise. I think we should all go and practice that with whichever sea level we can grab tomorrow.
Or just any leader, anybody who feels like they're in a leadership space or in the middle of conversations, or, so I always tell people leadership there's no hierarchy. It's just, if you're somebody like that person, Rob, you mentioned somebody who was in that team and played a specific role. I'm not doing technically anything, but I fill a role that makes the team feel good and makes us do our work better. Like, that person's a leader for me. Yeah. So
yeah.
Leader is leaders is skill, right? Not roles.
Yeah.
Everyone can be leader, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and sharing what you've been doing in Vietnam and New Zealand and elsewhere. It's really inspiring. It's really lovely to see humanity come back into the workplace.
We love it.
How you're doing it.
We love it. We love it because it's, all of a sudden you can change someone's life, right? It's more about management, more about system. It's all human. We are all human. We are all want to be better.
Thanks for joining us today on Flâneurs, available wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you heard, you know what to do.